Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is episode number 76. We are live on YouTube, Facebook and Periscope stroke Twitter. A.C.E Podcast Nation is also home to many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more, so please give us a follow on social media and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the best way to support us, really helps us out a lot. You can find the audio versions to all our shows and series at your favourite podcast and radio app. And of course you can follow the Andy Campbell Show if you'd like to streamline your experience by following at A.C.E Footy Show. And that's on all social media, but the links to all of that is in the description and in the closing credits. And just as we wait for the chats to fill up on the various platforms, we'll say a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports first of all for all their support. They're a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media pages and their brand new website, the links to which are both in the description and the closing credits. And of course, as usual, but a massive thank you to Bespoke Financial for sponsoring the show. And here's a quick word from them.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
Bespoke Financial specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages and of course sports cover. And I urge you to check out their social media pages, and the links to everything is in the description at the end of the show. And we thank them for sponsoring the show and their continued support with both the Andy Campbell Football Show and also the Championship Show on the Friday at 7 o'clock. So let's get into it. Joining me as usual, first of all, is my co-host, the goal collector, the king of the over 40s league, Cardiff City and Middlesbrough legend, but most importantly, Davy Jones' favourite son, Mr. Andrew Campbell. How are you, mate? You okay?
I'm good, mate. Yeah. I'm looking forward to tonight. I've got a few personal questions for our guest.
That sounds ominous, doesn't it?
Well, just basically just for where I went wrong in me coaching and me managing regime.
Right, okay.
But no, I'm really excited for it tonight. It's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the majority of the kind of the people we get on are like either current players or people who've not long finished their playing career. I'm really looking forward to speaking to someone who's like neck deep in coaching and managing, and of course played as well. But tonight's guest played for Doncaster Rovers, Wigan Athletics, Southend United among others, before moving into coaching where he's been assistant manager at Everton Belgium, manager at Luton Town, before settling into his current job as first team coach at Championship Side AFC Bournemouth. Mr. Graeme Jones, welcome Graeme, how are you?
Good evening Si, good evening Andy. You okay?
All right, mate. It's nice to have another northern voice on and bringing me back to my roots. It just makes me feel at home. Makes me feel great.
Yeah.
The northerners and you can't separate us.
No, they take over the world, mate. I tell you. How do the people down in Bournemouth? Do they understand what you're saying?
No, I've just learned to talk slowly and don't talk Geordie, Andy. That's the big thing.
That's one thing that people always said to me when I moved over to Cardiff. I moved everywhere that it was you talk too quick, or you know what I mean. I can't understand what you're saying, and I thought it was a wind up for a little bit, and then I don't know if I've calmed myself down or I don't get as excited. I don't know what it is, but I think people seem to understand bits and bobs now.
That's why the show's doing so well, mate. Is because people can only understand every other word you say.
You look like it.
I'm only playing, of course.
Ah, no.
I wouldn't have said that if we were in a studio close together. You're bigger than me. I was surprised, actually. I was looking at that photo where we met up last year, and I remember I was surprised when we met how tall you were. I always thought of you as like a small, quick striker, and you were good 6 foot.
It's a good save, by the way. You've made up for it there, haven't you? You've made me feel a little bit better.
I am very short as well, though, so there is that, you know. No, I'll take it. So, Graeme, what we like to do first of all, so where the viewers can get a little taste for what your tastes are, really, is we do the Magnificent 7, which is effectively 7 quick-fire questions where you just answer the first thing which comes to mind. Nothing too tricky. Just ease us in nicely. So here we go, the Magnificent 7. Okay, Graeme Jones, the Magnificent 7. Nice and easy to start. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Doncaster or Wigan?
Wigan.
Favourite TV show?
I like a bit of First Dates, Si.
I like that.
I've not had that one either. We have a different one every week.
We are talking about a TV show there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, there we go. Angriest teammate?
Gary Brabham.
That's a good one, by the way. I agree with you.
Okay. Coaching or playing?
Playing.
Managing or assistant?
Managing.
And lastly, the greatest Englishman who has ever lived. Doesn't have to be football related.
Oh, my father, without a shadow of a doubt.
Great answer. Great answer.
Answer.
I've got an extra question. I know somebody's asked me to ask another question about during your time. I'm guessing it was at Doncaster. Who was your best boot boy when you were at Doncaster Rovers, Graeme?
I really don't know. Andy, you'll have to help me out. You know, you want me to say Spady here, huh?
I want you to slag him off, mate. If I'm honest, I don't want you to say anything good about him.
He was a decent boot boy.
Was he?
He was all right. Yeah, he was. I think I gave him a $5 at Christmas, Andy. That was it.
Yeah. Well, you get what you deserve, don't you? So that's all I'm saying. You get what you deserve. So Martin, you got what you deserve, mate. So well done. You got your $5.
Speaking of paying people a $5, how much did you pay your brother to say that?
Hey, that's a good.
Can't understand me. Gee
that's a good one. That's a good one, by the way.
Come on, man.
Bang on.
Not having that at all. No, I might just boot him out of the chat now. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little chat about just some general football stuff to start us off. I think we've got to start with the standard of defending in not just the Premier League. I think the Premier League, the Championship. I've subtitled this standard of defending equals goals, because these first couple of games and the defending has been all over the shop from a lot of teams. It's not even one or two, whether it's Manchester United, it's been Wickham. It's been unbelievable, mate, all across the board.
Yeah, I can't really put my finger on it, you know. I start to think it's the fans. I start to think that with them not being there, is there less pressure? Is, you know what I mean? Our team's going gung ho a little bit. Obviously, Graeme will be able to have an insight and give me how he feels his own club's going. But I look at Liverpool, first game of the season against Leeds, are all over the place. I look at Man City. You know what I mean? For me, they had an opportunity to close the gap yesterday. Defensively, they were all over the place, and
they've signed defenders as well, haven't they, Man City?
Well, and they've just signed another one, I think, yesterday or today from Benfica. So you give 3 penalties away in a game, it's quite ridiculous, you know. I know we're going to talk about penalties, but those were different penalties than what we're going to talk about. You know what I mean? About getting the wrong side and not understanding where Jamie Vardy is. You know, you can't give a player of his quality, for example, you know what I mean, that much space in the box and not be aware of where he is. And Graeme, what's your take on it? What's your take on the amount of goals? What's going in? Because I'm just not used to seeing this many goals, really.
I'd have to go way back, Andy, I think, and just from my time in academies, you know, blocking shots, stopping crosses, heading. It's like it's a bit vulgar now to coach that, and fundamentally that's what good defending is. Also, if you're looking at that defensive midfield player's role, I don't see too many experts in that area. Everton have signed Alan from Napoli, and Match of the Day. I haven't watched live games of Everton, but what Match of the Day showed some clips. And anybody who wants to see a proper defensive midfield player's role needs to have a look at him. And it's certainly shown in Everton's results since the start of the season.
Yeah.
You mentioned defensive midfielders there, Graeme. And I find that quite interesting because I was reading something earlier. A couple of years back, a few years back, obviously Chelsea had Makelele, didn't they? And then they had, a bit later, they had Kante. But over the last few years, and there was a point where Kante was probably considered one of the best defensive midfielders, in the world. But over the last couple of years, he seems to have been used by the manager tactically as a much more attacking midfielder. And I think he's actually lost his effectiveness in the side, so much so that it looks like they might actually sell him in this window, which is incredible to me. I know he's getting a bit older, but in terms of why they might sell him, but equally, I think even the defensive midfield roles becoming like a lost art, and when you consider that that's a fairly new phenomenon in football, it's it worries me because I used to enjoy watching good defending as much as I would enjoy good attacking.
But it's the skill itself, though, Si, innit? That I'll go back to Arsenal, Boro and Arsenal winning 1-0 week in, week out. That Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Lee Dixon, Nigel Winterburn, and David Seaman, they pride themselves on clean sheets. And forget who came in. You know what I mean? You look at, they still kept their shape. They still Steve Bold. You know what I mean? They still kept the ethos of proper defending. Graeme just said there about throwing your body in front of the ball. You know what I mean? They did everything in their power to keep a clean sheet. Keeping a clean sheet was like a goal to them. Yeah. And then adding the defensive midfielders of Petit, Vieira. You know what I mean? United doing it with Roy Keane and having Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce, Jaap Stam. Listen, the best players die for that ball not to go in the net, and that's the difference between for me world-class defenders and not classed as world-class defenders. The players who do the stuff that nobody else wants you to do. And I hate the word world-class because world-class does get branded about left, right and centre nowadays, everybody, and this Ballon d'Or, once you get that tag of you're in the top 10 or top 12, top 20 players on it, you can't have 20 world-class players. The world-class players are the standout world-class players. Messi, Ronaldo. You can't put players in that bracket. It's impossible. Those two are world-class. The Maradonas, the Pelés. It's hard to break in that category for me. And the defenders, they're going to have some career to break into those categories.
But back in the day, you did used to have defenders in there, didn't you? Like Maldini, Costa Curta, and these types of guys. There was a vast array of, if not world-class, defenders at the highest quality. And I look around now, and if you ask me to name a world-class defender, I'm struggling. So maybe I'll put that question to you, Graeme. If I asked you to name a world-class centre-back, who's the first person which comes to your mind who still plays?
I think there's different types, isn't there? You got Virgil van Dijk's the first one, but he's such a good all-rounder. But Liverpool are a very front foot defensive unit where they'll press the ball high up the pitch, so he doesn't get exposed as much as maybe other centre halves. The one that I was privileged enough to work with was Vincent Kompany, and Vinny Kompany had all them qualities that I speak about. He wanted to head the ball, he wanted to keep clean sheets, he wanted to stop shots, but he was a leader. He understood the role. He understood back threes and back fours and cover and depth. And he's the last one of that generation, what I'd call old school. For me, there's nobody springs to mind of that style knocking around now.
I look at JT and I look at. I don't think he ever got the credit that he thoroughly deserved and should have got. That I'm not saying he had the ability like the Rio Ferdinand had and could come out with the ball like Van Dijk, the comfortableness of having the ball at his feet. But I tell you what, if you wanted somebody to defend properly and put his body on the line from minute 1 to minute 90, you've seen it do it over again and for his country. There's no better defender, and that's out and out defender. For me. And
positionally, he was fantastic.
Absolutely.
You think about the John Terry position on crosses.
He was like a magnet when he was like a magnet.
Yeah, and that was talent. That was a ability to get in the right position. And there's just so many different styles of defending. But the old traditional one, for me, is not there as much anymore.
No.
Totally agree.
Ratcliffe, still one of the best defenders I've ever seen, by the way. I'm not having that. Gavin Randall in the chat just said Jamie Carragher and Sammy Huppier, world class. I'm not having that at all.
He's got to be a Liverpool fan, hasn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's listed just like Liz, load of Liverpool fan. But like Jamie Carragher was a fantastic defender, and in many other eras he would have got a lot more England caps. But unfortunately for him, he had some world class defenders in front of him. I'm not having Huppier at all.
So this is where football becomes amazing, because we've all got these opinions, we've all got favourite teams, favourite players, and our opinions. And this is where, for me, the grey area of this title world class, that I could see somebody having an amazing season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, but for me, world class is someone who's going to do it. Graeme just mentioned there, Vincent Kompany, who's done it from 10, 20, 15 years. The boys who Ronaldo, Messi, that's always a starter question for me. The lads who've done it in various countries and continue to do it.
Yeah, season after season, isn't it? At the end of the day. So the other part of this question I wanted to ask you guys about before we move on to the handballs and stuff was, is it just that our footballers these days are proper athletes, aren't they? They're built bigger, they're quicker, they're faster. In many ways, they're more skillful. Even your central defenders can do all sorts of skills and things, and their vision and things like this are much better. So is it just a case that offensively players are more talented, they're stronger and quicker and technically better than they were 20 years ago, so defending is just more difficult? And then when you add in the rule changes of things like tackles from behind and a shirt pulling being a lot more fussy from the referees, is it just a case of that the defenders then look worse than what they were, or is it, do you think, a combination of both, Graeme?
I think it's the modern coach is an on-the-ball coach. It's sort of not fashionable now to coach off the ball, and it's actually should be the opposite in terms of getting football results. But everybody wants to coach patterns and attack and play and rotation, and the essence of the game really is to score goals first and foremost. But if you keep a clean sheet, invariably you'll get a chance in a game. And it's something that I learned to appreciate in my time at Luton. Before that, I was obviously involved with Roberto, and we were really attacking coaches, wanted to score goals. I just think that the modern coach needs to try and get the balance right between what he does on the ball and what he does off the ball. But for me, the modern coach now is coaching on the ball rather than off the ball.
So
I totally agree.
Sorry, Ant. I just wanted to just check something about that. So Graeme, do teams just not coach kind of off the ball stuff at all in day-to-day training, or is this something which is done like now and again, or is it just not done as frequently as it used to have been done?
It's seen as, I would say it's probably a 75-25 split.
Wow,
in most football clubs, because it's not as pleasing to the modern Premier League player to work off the ball. And it's something that, again, I'll go back to my time as Luton manager, that I learned the importance of that. And it's, I think I've just seen somebody making a comment about our time at Swansea and how we played, but I can assure you the off-the-ball stuff I've learned is imperative. That doesn't mean to say that you give any less time to on the ball, but I think the equal balance needs to be there for the modern player and the modern coach.
I totally agree. We at Middlesbrough, obviously, with Brian Robson, we used the Kevin Keegan style. It was attack, win 4-3, lose 4-3. We used to get on with it, and then obviously Brian left and Steve McLaren came in, and he obviously brought in a few coaches. Steve Harrison came in, and Steve used to work. It was every Monday and every Tuesday afternoon sessions, and it was basically defensive drills off the ball. It wasn't any fun. A lot of the lads seen it as a punishment, Graeme, and
yeah.
You know what I mean. And until you got your head round why you were doing it and seeing the results on a Saturday, and seeing a result which you probably win 4-3 6 months ago, that you're now winning 2 or 3-0 or 3-1, and you're starting to be a little bit more comfortable in the game, and it's in your team ethos and everything about your shape and your formation was just a little bit better. You know what I mean? But that had to be drilled into players, and not just young players, experienced players as well, because we weren't used to doing it.
Yeah, I think once you get a buy-in from a player, Andy, in terms of they see the reward for the high press, for example. You know what centre forwards are like. I was one, you were one.
Yeah.
If you work hard off the ball and you get your press right, and the reward is you might have a chance, so you might score a goal from it, all of a sudden you get a buy-in from a player.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to sell it now. You know, it's a massive part of the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially as a centre forward, like, you know, you see lads with pace. They look, you know what I mean, and on purpose. You know, I used to do it when I played. That you look disinterested, and all of a sudden you're onto a loose touch, and you know what I mean. But you've got to do it, because for me, the high press is perfect for somebody who's got pace. It's perfect when you've got some quick wide players or a 10, and you can break in 2, 3s and 4s. And I just see modern day football. You know what I mean, with the goal kicks and people playing short side, there's probably a reason why people are letting more goals in, because they're overplaying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When was the last time you've seen a proper goalkeeper take a goal kick throughout the game and kick it every time religiously? You know what I mean? It doesn't happen now. You know what I mean? Because players are made differently. They want to play football. They want to get on the ball, and unfortunately, ultimately, some players are making more mistakes. And I'll use one example, and he's come up on this show quite a lot, Graeme. John Stones, and unfortunately on this show, John Stones gets a lot of stick from a few viewers, and because he's high profile, he's made a lot of mistakes because of the way he plays. You know, he comes out with the ball. He's not one for just booting it out. He wants to get a ball from a goalkeeper. He's been brought up the right way, playing for Barnsley, Everton, now Man City, and unfortunately, the way he plays, he's going to make mistakes, isn't he? Because he's overplaying or wanting to play on the ball instead of just kicking it upfield. Yeah,
I mean, we had John at Everton. Now we had him for the whole of our 3-year spell there.
Yeah.
And I can think of one mistake he made in them 3 years, losing the ball and a goal being a result of it. Yeah. It's not a bad ratio, Andy, if you think about how he plays.
That's excellent, yeah.
But again, John's a modern centre-half. It's the other side of the game that people need to concentrate on with John.
Yeah.
If they make him defend his box well, if they make him block well, if they make him cover well, if they different defensive qualities you need. If he had that now, he's still capable of being a top level centre half. And
totally agree.
He wasn't wasteful, you know. He wasn't a wasteful player on the ball.
For club and country as well. So does that upset you then, obviously, Graeme, that you've worked with this kind of player, and you see and hear the criticism he gets from ex-players, supporters? You know, I mean, does it upset you and annoy you a little bit?
Well, if I had my time back again, I'd work differently with him, because he was a young man with us. He was 19, 20, 21 coming through. We tried to sort of promote the positives. That's how we coached, rather than concentrating on the negatives. But when I look back, that natural talent was there. It was already there. If we'd have concentrated a little bit more on the other side of the game, I think John might have been a better all-round defender. I mean, he's had a phenomenal career. I'm really proud of what he's achieved. But I think if I was working with him today, I'd be working on different aspects of his game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be just very quickly, Graeme. Do you think that the last couple of seasons where we've seen quite a lot, maybe not even quite a lot, but we've seen some mistakes from John after having that period under you and Roberto where he wasn't making those mistakes? Do you think that's just a concentration thing, or is that the lack of defensive coaching day to day, so he's not getting that kind of repetition in terms of defending and drills and set pieces, or is it just maybe a concentration thing?
What I've been concentrating on Championship football the last 3 years. His mistakes, were they on the ball mistakes or off the ball mistakes?
Things like giving the ball away in the wrong areas, maybe, or dwelling on it a bit too long. I think they're the type of things, really. That's
not the John Stones that I know. John was really tidy on the ball. It was the off the ball sort of area you needed to work at, improving for him to become the complete defender, because he was capable. He still is. He's still a young man.
But that's why he moved, though, Graeme, wasn't it? You know what I mean? These are the reason why players move. Harry Maguire moved from Leicester to Man United. These players move to better themselves and want to become better footballers. They don't move for any other reason because of that. Because people can stay at Premier League clubs and earn absolute fortunes anyway and have amazing careers. So for me, you're putting yourself under pressure straight away by moving. But they've also backing themselves and backing their talents because they're very good footballers. Yeah. I've just named 2 defenders there, both massive names and huge players for our country. You know what I mean? So for me, I need those players flying. Forget the crucifixion, the media crucifying them. For me, pointless exercise. We need. Everybody's got to buy into what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andy.
So we were talking about defending. Just quickly, we saw a barrage of penalties in the first 2 weeks of the season, where this handball rule has been changed. One actually came after the final whistle, which was interesting. Haven't seen this. I believe it's never been done before. What did you make of this, Ant? Because it's if they don't change the rule, which I don't think they can till the end of the season, there's going to end up being like 200 penalties this year.
I don't see them changing it. I don't see how they can change it after what's happened. I'll be honest. I think they're going to have to. It won't be fair on the teams what's happened and what's happened to. But then I also do see it from the other points. But then I was talking to someone today about if you've got a clever footballer who's good enough in the box to find a little bit of space and flick the ball up onto somebody's hand. Because let's be honest, Lionel Messi, Raheem Sterling, these kind of players who are good enough on the ball in tight areas can flick the ball up onto somebody's arm. Is that a penalty? The way the rules are going at the minute, it's a penalty. You know what I mean? Eric Dyer wasn't even facing the right way. It's impossible to give a penalty against Eric Dyer. You know what I mean? Impossible to give it against Lindelof for Crystal Palace because he's trying to close the ball down. You know that. I watched a game. I think it was Harry Winks, and he had his hands behind his back. You know what I mean? We can't go back to having hands behind backs and defending because it's not proper defending. You're losing your balance. You're not defending properly for me. You know what I mean? As long as for me that your arms aren't in an unnatural position and I'm in above your head or out wide, then it's got to use your common sense. And I saw yesterday the referee looked embarrassed in the Tottenham game giving that penalty. He looked like he didn't want to give it, but he didn't have a choice, and he was embarrassed. He wished somebody made that decision for him. Well,
that's what they've been told to do. From everything I've read, is that they've been told that it's a penalty and it's been given. I think the Leicester one was slightly different because he's jumped with his arm in front of his head and above his head. That's a penalty for me because his arm shouldn't be up there. You know, if his arm's down chest height and Harry Maguire headers it against him, fair enough, he can't do anything about it. But the fact that his arm is up in the air, I believe that's a penalty. It was just weird because it was obviously he's headed it, the referee's blown the final whistle, and then it's gone into that. But what do you make of it, Graeme? Because it feels like we're going to have a lot of handball penalties this year.
Well, the one obviously we were playing yesterday, so I didn't see a lot of football. But I seen the Crystal Palace incident with Joe Ward on Saturday against Everton, and I think Roy Hodgson summed the game up really, really well afterwards. You should be given a penalty for a deliberate handball. That's categorically clear for me. And then he said it's ruining the enjoyment of the game for him.
Yeah.
Now, I was part of VAR in one game. I took my Luton side to Bournemouth, actually, in the FA Cup last year, for the third round of the FA Cup. And we had a VAR incident, so really unusual. All of a sudden, the cameras are going in the stadium because the Championship didn't have VAR, and they disallowed a second goal for Bournemouth. And it was a strange experience. It's like the whole stadium pauses and wait for a decision from elsewhere. I know now they've introduced the pit side monitors and referee making their own calls, but going back to the rule, it's a deliberate handball that stops you from scoring a goal and denies a goal scoring opportunity. And certainly the Eric Dyer incident and the Joe Ward incident, that wasn't the case.
No, I totally agree, Graeme, and I feel sorry for these managers because Obviously, Crystal Palace lost. You know what I mean? That would have been a point. You know what I mean? A big point for them, by the way they started. Jose Mourinho, you know what I mean, deserved the 3 points. You know what I mean? Tottenham absolutely battered Newcastle and deserved the points. Yes, people can say that they didn't put the chances away, but they didn't need to put the chances away. The only way that a goal was going to go in against them was something like that, or a wonder strike. And I just feel really sorry for football clubs. You know what I mean? We're all going through a hell of a lot at the minute with no fans and stuff, and to add extra pressure on managers and players and coaches and staff. It's gonna sap the enjoyment even further out of it, because you know what I mean, fans are having to pay to watch games at home. You know what I mean, obviously Sky TV, and it's just no enjoyment, you know. And then when you hear commentators, Jamie Carragher is very passionate, Gary Neville's always, you know what I mean, very, very passionate about what he says, and obviously Micah Richards now, you know what I mean, they're getting all these high profile pundits who are all singing off the same sheet. So if all them are noticing it, why can't someone just use a common sense and just decide that for the best of football, let people who know the game decide what's best for the game?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it should come down to the referee on the pitch. Andy, we spoke about technology taking responsibility away from referees now, but you've still got that second opportunity to go to a pitch side monitor and make a football decision. Now, they're not making football decisions; they're making decisions controlled by the refereeing body, and that's a guideline that they're having to stick by. Like you said, I've seen the embarrassment on the referee's face at the Tottenham game. It was like, it's a decision I've got to give because I've been told these are the rules here. Whether I agree with it or not.
I'd love to know, Graeme, if what was getting said in his earpiece as well. You know what I mean? Is someone saying to him, and just saying the rules, you know what I mean? So if it's hit his hand, it's got to be a penalty. I'm letting you have another look, but I think it's a penalty. You know,
absolutely.
Is somebody telling him what's going?
By the letter of the new law, it will be, and they'll have no choice.
And this is the upsetting thing, that he's, you know what I mean, you can see it in his face. He doesn't want to give it, but he's under pressure to give it. He's not getting any help from his fourth official, you know. And I just think it's such a shame, because they're getting them made look stupid. And every time they go into a game, they're hoping that there's no kind of decision to be made like this. And you know what I mean. But end of the day, the referee's made the decision which he's paid to make, and that's the call which someone's told him to make. So you know what I mean. Yes, we're all upset about the rules and upset about the changes what should be made. I agree, but at the minute the referees they're the innocent ones at the minute. Yes, they could go against it, but they're never going to go against the grain.
No, but you know we were in training on Saturday and we had the Brighton Man United game in the background, and I thought the referee used all the latest technology and the latest rules, and he got every decision. He had some big penalty calls to make.
Yeah, he did.
He got every single decision correct. Even the Morpay incident, which was stupid. It was intentional. He tries to stop the header using his hand. That's a refereeing performance that you want. You want to allow them subjectively to make a decision with the use of technology to aid that decision. And I was really impressed with his performance of the weekend, even though it went against me mate, which is the Brighton manager, which is unseen really. He never heard of blowing a final whistle and then recalling it and apparently winning the game. But I thought the refereeing performance was outstanding.
Yeah, I think, Graeme, it's really interesting. I was just having a quick look while you two were talking at to see if there was like a new rule change. Andy's just coming back; he'd lost sound, and technically, there's not actually been a rule change which has caused these decisions. What it is referees have been told that they're to be much more strict with their approach to handballs, which I found fascinating because I assumed that there had been a rule change. But actually, all it is the rule is that if the hand is or the arm is away from the body, outside of the body line, or the player leans into it, for instance, or basically things which would indicate some sort of deliberate handball. But these don't fall under those categories, some of them, and that's what's confusing.
It's not sustainable. Can you remember, Andy, a few years ago they were given penalties for basically grappling at set plays early season, and then all of a sudden that stopped.
Just stopped
because they knew that they couldn't control that. It was impossible. I think the same situation is going to happen here. Let the referee make a subjective opinion with the use of technology, whether it's a penalty or not, whether it's intentional handball or not. That's terrible.
Well, I totally agree, because I think what could happen is overnight, without even making a big thing of it, if VAR don't get involved with Eric Dyer's handball, the referee's not going to give it. You know what I mean? There's all appeals, handball. If VAR doesn't check it, he doesn't give it. It gets cleared. Tottenham potentially break away, go and score another goal that's forgotten about, and we need a moment. We need a moment like that, and then all of a sudden people will stop talking about it, because Steve Bruce wouldn't come on Match of the Day and on Sky Sports and go, "We were robbed of a penalty there," because he was embarrassed to get the penalty. You know what I mean? He just said, "Yeah, it wasn't a penalty. You know what I mean? We got beat 2-0 or 3-0 or whatever the score was, and just get on with it and make sure that his team is set up differently the following week for his own team." And I just think it needs a moment like that. And until we get that moment, yes, it's going to upset people what's just happened, but you know what I mean? But maybe don't come out and change the rule. Just keep it, like Graeme said, grappling was it's like shirt pulling. You know what I mean? Shirt pulling was a yellow card. And then all of a sudden it wasn't a yellow card because people were not getting a yellow card for it. Rules happen, and rules are put in place, but sometimes common sense prevails. And I don't know who decides it. If it is referees just saying we're not doing it anymore, or if it is the Referees League Association saying, listen, let's not make a big thing of it, but we're stopping this.
And do it privately.
Sorry to interrupt you both. Could it be that the FA or whoever it may be are saying at the start of the season, let's be really strict on these rules, whether it's grappling or shirt pulling or handballs. Let's make it an impact early on in the season to try and reduce. It doesn't really fit in with handballs, but with the shirt pulling and stuff, like to try and reduce it throughout the season overall. If we make a big kind of statement at the start of the season, give some penalties for it, that it'll kind of reduce, because the grappling was getting a bit, it was getting ludicrous at one point where he had guys not even looking at the ball.
But Si, everything was getting out of hand. I can even go back further about tackling from behind. Tackling from behind was supposed to be a red card offence. It's never been a red card offence. Tackle from behind is dangerous, but I've never seen a bad enough one which affects really a player. You know what I mean? Players try and win the ball, trying to get the ball. It's a tackle from behind. It's not a yellow. It's not a red card. It's a free kick. Get the ball down and move play. You know what I mean? As a centre forward, Graeme will tell you as well. You know what I mean? Graeme was a lot more harder than I was, but I'm expecting contact. If I'm getting the ball, I'm not expecting a free one to be able to turn and run at the defender. When I get the ball at my feet, I'm expecting someone to come from behind me, take me out, and me not wanting to get the ball the next time I get it. They're not expecting a yellow card. I'm not expecting him to get a yellow. I'm expecting if I front him up, I take him on, he brings me down, he gets a yellow card or worse. You know what I mean? There's so many interpretations for me, and I just think that the referees are a little bit getting hung out to dry, and you know what I mean, and they're being yes men, and for me, we're better than that. English football is better than that. The Championship, League One, League Two, the Premier League, especially Champions League, we're all better than this. You know what I mean? And they keep introducing something every year. And for me, if it's not broke, why fix it? You know what I mean? All of a sudden, we had referees stood on the side of a goal. I don't know where they've gone. They've just disappeared all of a sudden. You know what I mean? There's all these things that keep coming out
and then going
away. Well, the handball's not doing anything, so just get rid of that without a possibility as well for me.
I can't even begin.
It's maybe just a directive, like you've said, from the PGMO. I think it is, isn't it, Mike Riley, who's just said maybe start the season really strong, but it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, especially though the money though and Graeme involved in football. You know yourself from obviously probably the fallout of Premier League at Bournemouth, that small margins, moments in football, which can have a huge impact on football clubs. You know that you've seen obviously a lot of players. High-profile footballers leave your football club because they're not in the Premier League. You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, a big moment happened last year, which involved your football club, which had an impact on your club going into the division they're in. And these things have to be taken out. They've got to be eradicated, because we can't afford the multi-million-pound decisions these now. And if this has an impact later on in the season, we can't say Tottenham didn't win the league because they didn't get enough points. No, Tottenham didn't win the league because Eric Dyer gave a penalty away. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. These decisions can be huge.
Oh God, yeah.
Huge business, Andy. Now, but that's why just allow the referee to make decisions, and if he has to use technology to get the decision right, like the referee at Brighton did, just support him on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, you know what I mean? The humans, aren't they, Graeme, that they're going to make mistakes.
Of course, yeah.
I used to love. Referees making mistakes, because you know what I mean. If they got relegated to the Championship or another league, they used to come back stronger. Used to come back with an edge. You know what I mean. Referees used to be back in the day, there used to be good fun talking to Jeff Winter. We used to have a bit of crack and a bit of banter with the referee. Nowadays, you can't even look at them in the eye before they have a go at you, or look at them in the eye, because there's no camaraderie, there's no fun, there's no enjoyment.
They don't humanity.
They don't look like they're enjoying it. So if they're not enjoying it, how can a player look like he's going to enjoy it with a referee? It's
madness. The school teacher approach.
Yeah, madness. It doesn't make sense to me.
Very quickly, because this kind of ties in a little bit to what you were saying about small margins and how, the effect that things can have on clubs, on managers, on players, whether it's leaving or staying. I wanted to talk about the media influence on fans and players and managers, particularly the negative side of it. We've had 2 games of the season in the league. There was a small minority of Cardiff City fans calling for Neil Harris's head after the first game. Obviously, there's 3 games in now. There was fans calling for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's head after Man United start, and there was another team, I forget which team it was now. In my opinion, this is created by the negativity that is constantly ploughed out in the media. It's even whether it's front page or back page, it's negative, because negativity sells. But it just builds this pressure whereby you have 2-3 games of the season, you have a bad start, and all of a sudden the manager's looking over his shoulder for whether he's going to keep his job for the rest of the month. I think it's absolutely scandalous. It's quite frightening, because the managerial merry-go-round, as it's called, is already being quite extreme over the last few years. But if you're talking about 1 or 2 games of a season and the manager's under pressure straight away, how long is it going to be before it's like 1 or 2 games and then the manager's out if he doesn't win? Graeme, first, just before we go to you, Graeme, I wanted to ask Andy about this, because I know you've got an opinion on this, and then we'll bring in Graeme for the managerial sort of side of it.
My blood was boiling yesterday, because I was getting messages left, right and centre about Chris Wilder to get the sack because he's lost his first 3 games. I know Chrissy really well. Chrissy was my manager at Halifax Town. I've kept in touch with him ever since I was an adult, really. And he's been amazing to me. He was amazing when I was manager. He's been amazing ever since. And he was on par with being manager of the year last year from what he achieved.
He should have got it, in my opinion.
From his last 3 years of what he's achieved at his hometown club, and for people to call for his head, you know what I mean? Because he's had 3 tough games, and he's had three tough football matches as well, by the way. I just find disrespectful, disgusting, and just to give people a break, that listen, the second season is always harder than the first. That's the first thing I said to them. And second one, just give him an opportunity. That we forget about lockdown. We forget about the way that some football clubs play and operate. Chris Wilder's Sheffield United operate with a huge fan base. You know what I mean? Their players dictate sometimes, or their fans dictate the way that they want to play. You know what I mean? If you play at Bramall Lane and Graeme will have been there, that it's not a nice place to play football. It's quite intimidating. It's very noisy. You know what I mean? The fans suck the ball into the goal, so to speak. And you know what I mean? Sheffield United play on that. And without their fans, certain teams can play the different way with no pressure. Sheffield United players and Chris Wilder play and respond well to pressure and fans. So I feel really sorry for him. I really do.
Chris Wilder nearly got Sheffield United into the Champions League last year in his first season in the Premier League. Just to put that into perspective, the lockdown completely killed their momentum.
But now he's a bad manager, apparently.
What's the managerial view of all that, Graeme? It must be difficult because the media just seem to stoke up the fans from a negative point of view.
I think fundamentally, Si, as human beings, you learn by making mistakes. Huh?
Yeah,
so
of course you do.
Managers are no different. In many ways, you actually have to make mistakes in order to get better. So, it's such a huge area for me to speak about. But how can you judge a manager after 1 or 2 games? It's just, we made a decision. Jason made a decision yesterday, tactically. Second half, he made a really good decision that was justified by a clean sheet and a win. Now, at the end of the game, I said to him, I thought that was a good shout. And he said, yeah, this certain player's played in this position before. And later on that night, I reflected on 1 or 2 things. And I thought about my time at Luton. I was Luton manager for a year. Now, Jason's obviously had knowledge, because he's been assistant here, of this player and his ability to play in different roles. At Luton, after 6 months, you start understanding that players can play in different positions. And it made me realise how important time is for a manager, for assistant, for anybody. So the modern era, I've got 2 sons, 21 and 23. They're used to things now. Everything's instant. That's the culture we're living in today. So you have to roll with the times as well. But as a football club, fundamentally, you will not have success long-term by chopping and changing. You need to invest in the right person who's intelligent, person who's hardworking, person who's committed, a person who's got good experience, and you might just find you'll have a successful football club if you give them time.
I totally agree. And people aren't given enough time, are they? You know, and it's such a shame, and it's such a cutthroat industry. You know, that I do hope. You know what I mean, and not just because I know Jason. I know Jason really well. And you know what I mean. Some people who've been patient to wait for an opportunity, like he has, working with Eddie and working really close with Eddie. By the way, he must have learned so much from an individual. You know what I mean, and using his own ideas, implementing them alongside ideas he's learned. I bet it's different for you though to work with a different style and a different manager than you have previously though, Graeme.
Yeah, I mean, I had done it, Andy, when I left Belgium 2018. I went to work with Darren Moore, I was assistant to Darren at West Brom. He's still a lifelong friend. So I'd experienced that. That was really refreshing, seeing a different way of working. And obviously coming in and now working with Jason, I've loved it, absolutely loved it. There's just many, many different ways to find success. You realise that. I think what's really important for any manager is you have to be authentic. It has to be your way. And as long as you're yourself and you're good at it, you'll be fine. You can't copy anybody.
Nice. All right, so we've been through obviously things with any other business. I would like to now obviously focus on you, Graeme, and focus on at the start. I want to focus on your playing before we go into the questions with some of the questions that we've got in the live chat, which are amazing, by the way. I want to touch on obviously your playing, because obviously you said at the start playing or coaching. You said playing. You know, I mean, nobody can replicate playing, and playing doesn't last forever, unfortunately. And however much you love playing, it seems to just go in a heartbeat and is over, and there's a long life after it. But you know what I mean? I don't think anything replicates that thing of playing. So how important was starting out in non-league football for you? Because obviously you started out in the Northern League, I'm guessing, from the teams that you played for. So how important was that for your development in football?
Well, my first club, Andy, was Millwall at 16. So I went there as an apprentice. Or the new YTS scheme.
Yeah.
And
if you don't mind me asking, was it a similar pay scale as what we were on? Because I was talking to Martin today, and Martin got. And to be fair, I got paid more than Martin, by the way, because Martin told me he was on £36.50, and I got 37, so I was buzzing. To be fair, I got an extra pound.
I think we were 27.50 first year, 35 second year, Andy.
Good jump, that.
It was good pay rise.
Inflation.
No, Andy, I started at Millwall. George Graham signed me just before he left for Arsenal. I went down to Millwall. John Dockley took over as manager, probably their best era. Sheringham, Cascarino, Hurlock, but I wasn't ready for it. Yeah.
Sad. Tell everybody, Graeme, tell everybody about the old den, because obviously that, you know what I mean, you'll have obviously been there and seen.
Andy, the old
first
den.
Hand.
My God, the old den used to walk out behind the Millwall fans. So you had to walk through a cage tunnel. And you got no idea what that place was like, Cold Blow Lane. Jeez, people were beat before they came. But the culture of the players, you know, we had some really good players, but they were tough. Terry Hurlock, Keith Stevens, Alan
Yeah.
Walker, and Sheringham and Cascarino could look after themselves. And there was a togetherness. There was a unity. If there was any trouble on the pitch, you had to be in for your teammates. If you weren't, you'd be the one who got exposed. I really think Wimbledon took the lead from Millwall. Their style came because of that. So, but I wasn't ready, Andy. I came from a good family. I had a loving mum and dad. I went down there. Mentally, I wasn't mature.
Yeah.
Struggled, if I'm being honest. Came back to non-league football.
Why, Graeme? When you say you struggled, is that because you had to move away from home that far? That it was too much of a move?
I think football is a working class game, and I was doing an apprenticeship with people from Southeast London and people who had different backgrounds to me, maybe one parent families, different situations. It was a tough environment. Mentally, I wasn't ready for it, and that's what happened. You see it happen to many players. Chris Waddle, Peter Beardsley came in. There'll be a reason behind it. It'll more often than not be similar. That's why non-league football can be such a great place to pick people up. Yeah. I had 5 years in non-league football. Now when I look how the academy structure is set up, where you go from 18 to 23s football, my 18 to 23s football was playing against men. We go back to the tackle from behind, Andy. The tackle from behind was, do you know what you used to say to your own defenders in the dressing room? First chance you get, make sure you let them have it, especially if they could run like you.
Yeah, smash him. I did, yeah.
Andy, I think the tackle from behind got outlawed when maybe I was 23. Maybe I'm wrong. But I was so relieved there because you got digged. First opportunity, you were getting it. So I played non-league football. I was very up and down when I look back on my first 3 years. Played for Newcastle Blue Star, who was the best. It was the best non-league club in the area.
They were by far as well.
Under Colin Richardson. And Colin moved to North Shields. I went to North Shields with Colin. I think he paid £1,500 for me, and it was a big fee in that.
Bargain, Graeme.
And then I signed for Bridlington Town, and Colin came. Colin came maybe a month later, and sort of when I was 22 and 23, 21 to 23, all of a sudden I was starting to become consistent. Knew what it took. I remember getting 20 goals for North Shields. The following season, when I went to Bridlington, I got 30 goals in the old HFS Loans League. We won the league, won the FA Vase at Wembley. And I was ready. I was starting to mature. And Ken Richardson, the owner of Bridlington Town, bought Doncaster Rovers. And he offered myself and a lad called Chris Swales, who's still my best friend. He's, Chris, me and him were given a trial. I just got married and went away to live in Doncaster and managed to sign pro. I signed a 2-year contract. Again, struggled that first season. Really struggled. The step up was huge. When I look back now, I was game for anything, but it was maybe 3 or 4 leagues higher than the one I'd played in. I got 4 goals. Played maybe 25 games. But remember, Andy, no sports scientists know nothing in them days.
Yeah. So no.
I remember looking, after maybe 6 months, I thought to myself, I'm not quick enough here to be a second striker, and I'm not strong enough to be a target man. So I thought to myself, I was probably 11.5 stone at that time. I thought, all right, I'm gonna have to go heavy in the gym here. And we signed Jamie Lawrence from Sunderland. Jamie, I love Jamie. Just got out of Nick.
Yeah.
And Jamie, he'd been hammering the weights in prison. So I says to him, Jamie, I want to get bigger. He says, come with me. And me and him spent, 5 months in the gym. But I was doing the gym every day, and I knew it was at the expense of my performance on the pitch. But I was hoping long term it was going to take me somewhere.
Yeah.
So the following season, I really beefed up. I put 2 stone on in weight and muscle, and had a superb pre-season. Came off the weights, but I'd got me strength. And that season, Andy, I managed to get 15 goals and 30 games. Really, really, my overall game, my all-round game came together. And signed a new deal, scored 11 goals the following season, and then Wigan Athletic paid 150 grand for me at that time. It was a club record fee for Wigan. It was Dave Whelan's Wigan. He just took over, and then I managed to, my first season, I got 33 goals, won the Golden Boot, won the league, and just you felt established. But you know, all of a sudden now I'm 26. And I went to Millwall at 16. This was 10 years' work to get to a level where I could consider myself a proper League One footballer. So it wasn't easy.
How upsetting, Graeme, is to see the state of Wigan now? Obviously, from the club that you went to and the good work that David done. You know what I mean? Because obviously, the club that I remember battling with Cardiff. Obviously, when. Obviously, when I signed for Cardiff, you were still, you just left, and they brought in other centre forwards. Brought in Jason Roberts. I don't know if he was still there when you were there. Duke, Nathan Ellington, the Duke, and you know what I mean. They were a club who've been in obviously transition. They moved to the new stadium. They were looking $1 million, and the chairman was just buzzing to be around football and build his dream. And I look at it now, and it's heartbreaking, really.
It's my club, and I had 4 years there as a player and had 4 years there as assistant from 2009. And I love the club. It's a great club, and Dave Whelan gave certainly me and Roberto so much because of the opportunities he gave us. And I remember at the time he did it sensibly, Dave, though, because I remember Mohamed Al Fayed signing Pescalito for £2 million in League One. It was like big business. And Dave built it slowly, and he built in the end, a Premier League club that stayed there for 7 years, won an FA Cup, and then to see where it is today, it's been abused, is the truth, and saddens me. All I think about is its survival, that I can cut its cloth accordingly, not rely on a money man. Because Dave Whelan was a local money man who was there for the right reasons. Yeah. So I just hope it goes into the hands of the right owners who've got the right intention and have proper Wigan Athletic people who care about the football club and know the club looking after it.
Is that key as well, though, Graeme? Because we've spoke about this and spoke about the Hull Cities of this world, the Wigan Athletics of this world recently. Other teams who've got owners who haven't really got the club's best interests at heart sometimes. You know, I'm quite lucky. I mean, being a ex-Middlesbrough player, Middlesbrough fan, that Sir Steve Gibson is just amazing. He's a hero at the football club because he's built a football club the right way. He's stuck by a football club the right way, and he cares about the club.
Yeah, and he gives his managers a chance.
Well,
he does. He gives you he gives you an opportunity to work, and I think
he does.
I think the biggest compliment I pay Steve is from the managerial game. He's seen as somebody throughout the football world that somebody you'd want to work with. Because,
and I think a lot of people have said that, though. A lot of people have said, I know Neil Warnock publicly said, he said to me personally, he said that he's asked him to work for him 7 or 8 times, and he, you know what I mean, it hasn't been the right time, and then all of a sudden it's just timing's everything, I guess, sometimes, and you know what I mean, it's just perfect timing now that Neil's there. He's hopefully gets a little bit of success for my football club, and we can have a little bit of a swan song with with a Cardiff City hero and a folklore, so fingers crossed with that one. But no, going back to your career, obviously you spoke about Wigan, a happy time in your life, and then what happened when you left Wigan, Graeme? That you obviously went up to Scotland, and then what happened towards that and towards the end and towards the coaching? When does coaching start to become something that you wanted to pursue? Did it start at a certain time in your career, or did you wait till you finished?
No, when I went back in, Andy, at 23, I made myself a promise I wasn't coming back out, because I'd been a postman, I'd been a sheet metal worker, I'd been a lagger. I went to college. I knew how difficult life was outside of football, and I knew how privileged I was to be in it. So I studied. I qualified as a teacher. I got my licences early. I was 29. I was an air licence holder at that time, which was very few.
Yeah.
But just before I go on to coaching, Andy, my experience at St Johnstone was brilliant for me because I wasn't a top level player. My level was League One, League Two. That's what my ability took me to, in the Scottish Premier League. But at that time, the Scottish Premier League was the best it's been. You had Martin O'Neill's Celtic and you had Dick Advocaat's Rangers. So at that time, 6 times a year, you're playing at Ibrox and you're playing at Celtic Park. And tactically, the education I got, particularly playing against Advocaat's Rangers side, was invaluable. And it was invaluable for the level that I would end up working in coaching, because I seen how important possession football was and positional play, and I felt like I was getting educated on the pitch. The concentration levels to be perfect tactically from my team's point of view against Celtic and Rangers at that time was phenomenally different to what I'd experienced in League One, League Two, where it was a boxing match at times every week.
Yeah.
So I think when I look back, that education was important, but it was no more important than what non-league football was as well, because I can speak about every level of the game. And
I totally agree.
And that really set me up. I was a bit of a nomad, Andy. After that, I was injured for 13 months at St Johnstone, went to Southend, went to Boston United in League Two, went to Bury, went to Clyde, went to Hamilton. I was earning a living as a journeyman footballer at that point. So the rest was, I think the best bit was over as a player when I was 30. But we have to make a living as well. That was my occupation.
It was interesting though what you said about that about Scottish football, because I was fortunate enough to play a season in the Scottish Premier, Dunfermline, and you know what I mean. Yes, you look forward to playing against the Celtics and the Rangers, but you know yourself as a centre forward, you're not going to get much of the ball. You know what I mean. I tended to move out probably wide when we played Celtic and Rangers because we played one up, so we defended a little bit deeper. We let them have the ball, and it was like you say, it was such an education because you know what I mean. You're playing in front of these big stadiums and these big crowds, and you didn't touch the ball for so long periods. And then when you got the ball, you had to do something. You have to do something with it. It wasn't about probably scoring a goal. It was about looking after it because you didn't want to be the one to give it away, because then everyone else is going to be on your back. Because you know, I knew important out was about possession, because you know what I mean. You're playing them 6 times in a season. We were lucky enough to then play in the Scottish Cup final. And I'll be honest, I'd love to see the stats from the game, because I can't remember having the ball myself longer than probably 30, 40 seconds in the whole game, because it was more work off the ball. I came off the pitch so tired after about 70, 75 minutes that I was so drained because of the whole occasion, the game, the effort we put in. And you do it all because of the love of the game, because you know for a fact, sometimes you're playing to keep the score down because you know for a fact you get 1 goal, you know what I mean, at the time. Chris Sutton, like Henry Glasson, Sean Maloney, Roy Keane, you know what I mean, it was John Hartson. It was just relentless. The kind of players that they could pick on the bench in the squads in the side, it was just outrageous. But it was a great experience for me personally, and something that I wouldn't change for the world. There
was definitely a gap, technically.
huge.
Andy, but it was a good experience anyway for them reasons that you've just said.
I think I got my love for me running that season.
Yeah, no choice.
But the Scottish League, what's the equivalent for you to the English pyramid or the British pyramid? Like, because people often say, "Oh, the Scottish League's not up to much, or it's this or it's that." Like, what league do you feel is the equivalent for like the Scottish Premier and the League One? I think it's the Scottish Championship now.
At that time, Rangers and Celtic were a Premier League. Would have definitely played in the Premier League. But I remember Hearts, Andy, this is my time there, was 99 to 2002. Hearts and Hibs. Alex McLeish's Hibs side is as good a side as I've ever played against.
Yeah, good side, yeah.
They had Frank Sauze, who was a sweeper, played a back three, who won the European Cup with Marseille. They had Russell Latipi. They had incredible players. And Dundee had Caniggia, the Argentinian. I mean, there was a really good level and a good experience.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say them two Premier League, the likes of your Hibs and your Dundee and your Hearts at that time, would have definitely competed in the Championship. So it was, I don't know how you felt, Andy, I felt like it was probably English 4 league standards wise, spread in the Scottish Premier League.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think you can only judge on the time that you were there, Si. You know, the Dick Advocate manager. You know that it's a different level. The kind of players that he was able to bring in. You know that he was the football that they played, the attacking players they had, the defensive players they had. You know what I mean? They had world class footballers at the time. You know what I mean? International players who'd won leagues around the globe.
Arthur Newman, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst,
won Champions Leagues, you know that, and the same as with the time I was there, you know what I mean. And I look at the Celtic team. Obviously, Celtic were in a transition. They'd brought in Roy Keane, Henrik Larsson was back, John Hartson. You know, these players, these players had won. These players had won Premier Leagues in England. So you know what I mean. It's so difficult to. I look now and I see the transition which Rangers are in from obviously being demoted the seasons. Like Stevie's done a great job in getting them fighting towards a title.
He's building them
I still think they're miles away from the Premier League. I'd love to see them in the Championship and battling with English players. Yeah. Celtic, I think the same. I think you can't put one in without the other. So I think they both have to fight in the same league. But would they be fighting for a top six? Of course they'd be fighting, but it'd be so difficult because if we had fans and fans were at Ibrox and at Celtic Park and there was 65,000 fans and 7,000 Celtic fans were travelling to Bournemouth on a Saturday afternoon. You know what I mean? That's how fanatical they are, and it'd make football. It'd make it fascinating. It'd be amazing. But I think Celtic, you know, I mean, you see them struggling a little bit now at times in certain games because there's no fans there, because their generation of performance level sometimes is having 65,000 fans on your side and against St Mirren's and Dundee Uniteds and Dundees and Hibs and Hearts and Aberdeens, etc. But you know what I mean, the Old Firm games. Listen, I'd love to see them north of the border, but I'm just not sure whoever's going to make that decision and get that going. But
I don't think it'll ever happen, Andy. But no. I think it's a good comparison.
Totally agree.
My idea was to have the Scottish teams included in the League Cup, but anyway.
But I think that's a good idea, Si. And then we'd see if it would add to our league and our
It got trialled, didn't it? Well, there was the Iron Brew Cup which is a great name, by the way, for any cup. The Iron Brew Cup is the best name ever, better than the Coca-Cola Cup and the Carling Cup. But they had Scottish League 1, 2, and 3 sides against Irish and Welsh, I think it was, and you know what I mean. If it was just a project to see if it worked, I think it would work, and I think it'd be great for British football to have the best of the best, and then there'll be no arguments, and then we'll be able to really see if people go upset the apple cart. Let's see. But before we touch on your unbelievable career in coaching, Graeme, we've got some great questions, by the way, on for the group chat. So do you want to pick some out?
Yeah, I'll pick a couple out. So Donna Perry asked, "Hi Graeme, what's your opinion of Kenilworth Road and the setup of the whole stadium? It seems like a bit of a tourist attraction for away fans to visit."
I think it's a big advantage for Luton because the stadium is different, but it generates a fantastic atmosphere. And when the home crowd really gets behind you, it's a difficult place to go and get points.
You look, don't you, at the Towns have had good cup runs. You know what I mean? I think there was one game in particular. It was Scott Oakes when he scored a hat trick in the FA Cup. I think he scored. It was a 3-2 win against. I'm sure it was Liverpool. And then you're going back years ago with Mark Steen and all those kind of guys who won the League Cup. And going back donkey's years, by the way. Now the ground hasn't changed. You know, it's just obviously gone from all-seater stadiums and things, but you know what I mean. Kenilworth Road was always those places that everything was on top of you. You know what I mean. I remember being sub there once, and obviously you've got the strange setup, haven't you, behind the dugouts, which is like I'll call it directors' boxes, but it was like different seating to everywhere else, and it was just really surreal that it's so different to everywhere else, and there's no ground exactly the same as that, and it did make it very different and very surreal.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting ground.
I've got a feeling you've answered this one already, but I'm going to ask it just in case there was one which was even more intimidating. James Costley asked, "What's the most intimidating ground you ever played at?"
Oh, that's a question. Ever played at? Probably Stokes ground.
Okay.
It was. I think if you upset the Stoke fans, you'll know about it, and we did this day at Wigan.
I agree.
Yeah.
Was Was that the new ground or the old
No,
one?
the new one.
The new one.
Yeah,
it was. We upset them in a playoff semi-final, Si.
Oh yeah.
And I remember that was the first leg of the semi-final before they knocked us out in the other semi-final, the second leg. But I remember warming up and there was just absolute riots, and it was just you just didn't know where to look. You didn't dare move. I just stood still, stretching, hoping that nobody hit you.
They'd come after you, Andy. Yeah? They'd come after you. Oof.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's awful.
I don't know what the old ground was like.
It's awful. Well, I've spoken obviously Graham Kavanagh and Peter Thorne, and they used to say that it was really intimidating to play for both teams as well. And you know, I mean, old grounds they always have that. You know, but fans, it's the fans who make the stadiums. The fans move from stadium to stadium. We spoke. I
don't know though. The acoustics in some of the new stadiums because of the way they're built, it's not the same.
No.
It's just not.
Fans are a big miss, lads.
Yeah, I totally agree. I won't say this is a highlight or a good thing, but I wasn't lucky enough to play obviously the old Den, but played at the new Den once, and to be honest, I didn't enjoy a minute of it. I got absolutely tortured for
I think it would have been an easy show, Andy, for me to say the new Den or the old Den. That is notorious.
That was tough. It was a tough night. It was there's not many teams who come away from Millwall either with a result or enjoying the game. You know what I mean? If you get both from that fixture, you're either a very good footballer or very lucky.
Yeah.
I like it. Ninian Park is still the best, by the way. I
forgot about Ninian Park.
Make sure everyone knows that.
That's another tough one.
A gentleman called Stuart Campbell says another cracking question. What a gentleman! He says, "How important is diet to the modern player?" Superb question.
I think
it's me dad, by the way, Graham. He's full of these amazing questions. He's took him like 6 months to get a decent question out.
Do you know, Andy? It's not just diet. We're talking about lifestyle. So if you want to be a modern Championship, Premier League player, even League One, League Two, have 8 hours sleep every night. Don't drink alcohol, and have 3 sensible meals a day, and train every day. That'll keep you on the training pitch every day. Keeping you on the training pitch every day will allow you to improve, and it's a simple formula that the majority of professional footballers can't stick to.
It's mad, no?
Which is madness because we just spoke earlier on, haven't we, about how short a career can be and having no regrets, and you know what I mean. It's so different, you know, that the Graham, you know what I mean. Drinking culture when I played and when you played was off the wall. It was you know what I mean. You had to be able to drink to be able to socialise, to be able to be part of a group, to be able to be accepted. You know what I mean. You had to be, and unfortunately or fortunately, it was just a skill that you had to learn, and if you didn't learn it, you didn't have a choice. You had to get on with it and do it, and it was. There was
no education, Andy, about alcohol.
It wasn't big or clever, but it was just the thing to do. When you used to be able to still perform the next day or 2 days later, and just get on with it and do it.
I think when you're younger, you get away with it. You start getting older, it catches up with you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Gaz asks, would Graham like to work with Roberto Martinez again in the future?
That's a question.
That's a question, by the way.
I don't know, really. I've never really thought about that since. I mean, I love Rob. Rob's like a brother to me. But I left Roberto to become a manager. That was the reason I left him, and I did that. So that's one I've never really thought about. So
in a predominantly Cardiff chat, generally, a lot of our viewers are sort of Cardiff fans or Welsh fans. A lot of praise for kind of your time with Roberto Martinez, including your time at Swansea with Belgium, and the way you guys used to play football. And I think that says a great deal about the way your teams used to play and the enjoyment that it would give all fans, not just fans of Swansea or Belgium. So I think that's a tremendous compliment, to be honest.
No, it is. It's nice, yeah, but the compliment comes about because our style of play got football results and won games. That's normally the reason you get a compliment. And
whose philosophy was it though, Graham? You know what I mean? Was it a joint philosophy? Was it someone's idea? Was it how did it all come about? Because you can't just overnight play like that, can you? You must have put some effort to do it.
Andy, remember, we've all got different influences. So my influence was Kevin Keegan. I'm a Newcastle fan. I used to go and watch Kevin Keegan's teams play. I used to watch him play. Loved it because I loved attacking football. Me and Roberto, I'd bought a house in Scorton, in Scotch Corner, where, when I look back, madness. When I was a Wigan player, travelling in every day. And Roberto says to me, Graeme, why don't you stay with me twice a week instead of doing all the travelling? So I stayed with Rob. Me and him ended up, we were friends anyway, ended up big friends. All we talked about was football. He's from a culture at that time from Spain, which was a turn possession based. It wasn't possession based so much at that time, but it was a different angle. Yeah. So when we went in at Swansea, we had different influences, but we learned together. It was me and him. And Roberto, people forget Roberto was player manager when we went in at Swansea. So I was left to the coaching quite a lot, especially in the early years.
Yeah.
It was just, it was a possession-based game that we wanted, of attacking football with positional play, and we wanted to control the game on the ball. And it stood us in good stead for 12 years.
I totally did, and it was more for me about not being in possession. You know, that the way that you played with your high press and your pace when you got the ball and moving the ball. It wasn't a boring, repetitive way of playing, was it? It was about playing front foot football. It was about being effective when you got the ball as well.
But Andy, we always promoted natural talent. So when I look back to Swansea with Andy Robinson, it was a right-footed left wing, and Lee Trundle.
Good player.
We would never ask them to do some of that. We thought that was detrimental away from their talent, would enhance their talent. Then I can think of going to Wigan with Hugo Rodallega and Charles Nzogbia. You know, you have to set certain teams up that they're not doing things. For example, ask Charles Nzogbia to track the left fullback all the way to the byline to stop a cross. You'd be wasting your time. Yeah. So we'd have to set the team up differently in order to get the best out of him. And we always enhance natural talent. That's why the possession-based, the attacking football suited certain players that we had through the years. Then you go on to Everton with Lukaku and Gerard Deulofeu and Kevin Morales and different players that Samuel Eto'o, people that we work with that we never wanted to take what they were fundamentally away from them.
Is that key then, Graeme? Is that looking at a player and trying to get the best out of their attributes? It's not about getting them to do more for the team, so to speak. It's about making them better players, but finding the best way of getting the best out of them.
Well, it's number one, the talent needs to be worth it, Andy. So if the talent's worth it, you need to build a team around that talent. So that talent can be off the ball. I've worked with some outstanding off the ball players. Yeah. But if it's on the ball, then don't ask them to do things that they can't do. You've got to get your balance of your team right to make sure you give them an opportunity to let their talent succeed.
That's so refreshing to hear. That is.
It's fascinating.
Because how many times do you hear a manager in an interview say, try and not lump all the players together, but kind of say, oh, it's a team game, this, that, and which of course it is, but like try and take the focus away from the one star player, if you like. And I'm not saying that it's it is obviously it's a team game and stuff, but it's fascinating to hear. One thing I did want to ask Graeme was, it's completely gone. Oh, nightmare.
On that point,
it's completely gone. Great question.
I think Graeme's answered my question earlier on about why wasn't I successful as a manager, because I think I was asking players to do things that I wanted them to do, not what they want, not what they could do. Basically, I think that's what.
But that's I don't mean this horribly. That's an English culture to overcoach, and we get overcoached in this country. We're not creating robots. Don't ask people to do things that they can't do naturally. Yeah. Assess what they are fundamentally first.
I totally agree, and I think that's probably focusing on the level you're working at as well, isn't it? And the players that you're working with, and understanding that there's probably a reason why these players were playing at the level that I was coaching at the time, and me wanting to get to another level before, basically trying to run before I could walk. I think, you know what I mean, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
we talked just this past Friday, didn't we, about teams or managers trying to force tactics rather than looking at what maybe the players they've got available. So instead of trying to work out a formation and tactics to go with what you've got, some managers come in with this is the way I want to play, this is the tactics I'm going to use, and it's, like you just said, they want to run before they can walk, and they haven't got the players to achieve that goal yet, and then it doesn't always come off. Like who was it last year who kept trying to play from the back, and they kept making the same mistakes in the Championship? Oh, it was Derby, wasn't it?
Derby.
They kept passing the ball to Keogh, and he kept losing it, and they kept scoring, and they just kept doing it every week. And it was, difficult.
So I think players pick your tactics. Players pick your shape. You need to be flexible enough as a coach to understand that and implement that. You can't go in with a premeditated idea that I'm going to be a 4-4-2 man. You got to get in the building. You got to see what people are, and you see if you can get partnerships right, get the balance right, and maybe if your players are good enough, you'll have a successful team.
But you said earlier on there, Graeme, about Jason made a brave call yesterday in the Norwich game. Obviously, he won 1-0, kept a clean sheet. So how important is it to make these big decisions, these big calls, be flexible with your formations and your tactics? Because I see a lot of teams who are playing similar formations, 4-3-2-1 or whatever people, 4-5-1, 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it, and they stick to it religiously, and they're not flexible with team selections or tactics. They're just sticking with the same thing week in, week out. So how good is flexibility?
Andy, that's the school I'm from. That's all I know. I think them decisions come about when you've got good knowledge, good experience of them players, because you know if they're capable of doing it or not.
Yeah.
But then that's one method of work. Another method of work, for example, is Tony Pullis's work or Roy Hodgson's work, where they know what system they're going to play, and they recruit based on players who they think can play in that system. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
The clear identity either way of working. I know you will have, I certainly have, when you work under a manager with, I'm talking about me as a player, with no method of work, and he's hoping for a result. That's when you feel vulnerable as a footballer. So
I totally agree.
There's two different ways of doing it.
And it's difficult though, Graeme, isn't it? Because you look at it as from a player's point of view that let's use Tony Pulis as an example, that he likes his big target man. He likes somebody to run off him, for example, as a quick centre forward. So for me personally, it would have been great that I could have played with a bigger player, big target man.
Crouchy, Campbell.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden, a new manager comes in, and I'm being asked to play a different role. I'm asked to play in a different way. I don't like it. I can't settle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's so difficult because, you know what I mean, you suit one manager's tactics, but another manager comes in and it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. And that's the flexibility for coaching, but and players as well. It's important for both.
It is, Andy. It's that's why there's so many opinions. It's not straightforward.
No. And that's where, you know what I mean? And when it's so disrespectful when people say, you know what I mean, and I'll use Chris Wilder as an example. He's a good manager, he's a bad manager overnight, and that's the difference. The cutthroat. It's crazy, because you know what I mean. 1 minute McBurney is the best signing in the world, the next is the worst signing in the world. You know what I mean? It's just a load of rubbish. And I get people can have an opinion, but have an honest opinion and look at the bigger picture. Look at the last 2 or 3 years. Don't judge somebody over a 90-minute performance, because we've all had shockers, we've all had amazing games, but you know what I mean, we don't judge ourselves on a great performance, because we know Tuesday night we could have the worst game in the world and we could be dropped by next Saturday. So it's you've got to be realistic as well.
I think you have to look at the variables. So there's variables against Chris at the minute. He's got injuries. He's dealing with second season syndrome. He's signed new players, and he's got different challenges to deal with. He'll overcome them, because he's overcome every challenge that he's had before. It's just a matter of time. So
totally agree.
People need
Totally agree.
Graeme, from what you've said, it seems like you as a player up until now as a coach, you've changed a lot as a person, and both professionally and personally. And Richie asked, which player and coach did you look up to before and then after your playing career? So which players did you look up to?
I think because I was working in Middlesbrough Academy for 3.5 years, when I was finishing playing, I really looked up to Dave Parnaby. Dave Parnaby was my example, and still is today, really, of what a coach should look like and how a coach should act. He was knowledgeable. He was clean living. He was enthusiastic. He loved the game. He had passion for his club. He had passion for his job. And he was a great example for me of what a coach should look like. I think me now as a coach, we just played Man City on Thursday night in the Carabao Cup. Pep Guardiola he's a genius. And at the minute, who's getting stick? Pep Guardiola, which is just incredible that people can talk about his product. He's been the brightest football manager in terms of the method of work that I love, which is to score goals, for the last 10 years. So I would probably talk about them two people now.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Okay.
The question. Sorry, I've got a question for you now, Graeme.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on about a good friend of yours, Chris Wales. Obviously, I know he's a manager now. Does he ring up and ask for advice and help and support?
Like me and Chris are best friends, Andy. So we went to school together and played together at Luton Town, played together at Doncaster Rovers. He's manager at Dunstan Fed now.
Yeah. Talk about hard players, by the way. He was a hard player to play against.
He was oldest player ever to score at Wembley. He was 44 for Morpeth in the FA Vals final.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He finished playing when he was 47. Like, you're talking about a fantastic lad.
Good
He's
lad.
that single-minded, Andy. He's never asked for advice from me once.
Has he not? Fair play with him. I like
Not
that.
one.
I like that. And do you know what?
He wants to do it his way. That's
He's
his
done it
brain.
He's done it really well as well, how he's progressed. I'm guessing you've kept up on how well he's done and how successful he's done, and I hope lockdown doesn't have an adverse effect on the club. Because I know obviously finance wise, obviously people are dictated to about players coming in and stuff, because we're in a tough league as well. We travel in and without any money coming in, so I really hope for the local clubs in the area who are at that kind of level that they do get an opportunity to keep progressing, and Chris can go see where it takes him.
But he'll be successful whatever he does, Andy.
Love it, quality.
So the last sort of little bit of the show, Graeme, I was hoping to talk about your time at Belgium. We had a couple of questions about it as well. So I guess we'll start with Donna's question to kick us off, which was, did you enjoy your time at Belgium, and how did you feel about playing England? Was it strange?
I absolutely loved my time in Belgium. Me and Roberto had a move there, so we were full-time. We lived in Waterloo in Belgium. And we'd had 7 years straight in the Premier League, 265 games. We left Everton with 1 game to go. So I think the job came about at a great time, because we could reflect on our method of work whilst working with the best players in the world. But you're doing that, for 5 camps a year. And in between that, meaning with the scouts. So we were travelling all over Europe watching the best games in the world, because all our players were at the best clubs, and we were also learning. Within that, I think at the time we had Hazard with Conte, we had Lukaku with Mourinho, we had De Bruyne with Guardiola. We had Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld with Pochettino. We had Dries Mertens with Saki. Not Saki, the boy who went to Chelsea. Sorry. So, you're looking at games, and different styles was incredible. So, from an education point of view, it didn't get any better. So, it was an incredible job.
It's crazy. Crazy the names are.
Really happy in.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy the kind of players, kind of players who come through that generation.
Andy, I'll never have a
Sensational.
bigger challenge in my life than working with that group of players under one roof.
How did you find your first session? So the first time you took all those kind of players for training?
It didn't bother me. And I was well experienced. I was 7 years in the Premier League. It didn't bother me. I just looked at them like they're another player.
Yeah.
They're another player. But
I love that.
What I realised quite quickly was you had to do a hell of a lot to get their respect.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, who's Graeme Jones? You got the manager's Roberto Martinez. Whether the manager's you and you get instant respect because you're going to pick the team.
Yeah.
The second assistant manager was Thierry Henry. All these boys had grew up. Thierry was their hero. And I was Graeme Jones, ex-non-league from Gateshead. And by the end of it, I got my respect because of my work, because of my consistency. And I was sad to go because I probably reached my best point when we beat England and got a bronze medal in a World Cup. I probably, at that point, felt really comfortable in the job, but I had other ambitions and it was time to go. But, you know, I'd rather just remember the good times that I had there because I left on a high.
Yeah, totally agree. And something that you obviously should be extremely proud of yourself. Apart from getting the bronze medal from England, by the way, that's obviously not something to be proud of. But I'll be happy with that one, won't you?
But Andy, you know, that day going to the game, it meant something because you were playing for a medal.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
if you finish fourth, you get nothing.
Yeah, I know.
We were at it.
Yeah, that must be very strange as well, though. You know what I mean? Because you're going into a major tournament, and it means something. You know, it's something that you got forever. There's not many people in the world who get that kind of recognition, is there? You know that, especially now the World Cup's even bigger, isn't it? More teams. You know what I mean? Even harder to win anything and get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals. Now it's a huge achievement. So to get even further is even better.
But we played England twice as well, and I'm a proud Englishman, and I love Gareth Southgate. Because was so fortunate to have somebody like him at the helm. So that was difficult. I done my pro license with Gareth, and I'm looking at him thinking, I want to beat you here because you have to.
And you did.
And we did, yeah. We beat them twice. And, and I got a medal for it, and that was the motivation. But we weren't messing about. We didn't go there. I remember having a bit of an argument with Marwan Fellaini at half time in the third and fourth place playoff. And he looked at me, they all call you coach on the continent. Coach, are you joking? I went, no, I'm not joking. This is serious business here. Marwan, I want to win. And we ended up winning the game because we were desperate to get that bronze medal. So, and it's something you can keep with you, it stays with you for the rest of your life.
Totally agree.
Graeme, you mentioned obviously the massive list of unbelievable talent which Belgium had and still does at their disposal. Do you, obviously you were living in Belgium, what was the media pressure and expectation like in Belgium for what that team could achieve at that tournament? Because obviously if you put those players in an England jersey and you're in England, the media would have been unbelievable. They would have been built up to something, you know, to like fever pitch. The pressure would have been so big going into the tournament. So I'm kind of interested in what it was like in a different European country.
Pressure was huge because it was the golden generation, and in the media's eyes, they hadn't delivered. They got to the quarters of the Euros, got knocked out off Wales. They got to the quarters in Brazil, and got knocked out off Argentina. And the boys felt the pressure. They really did. And then coupled with that, we made the decision to leave out probably the most popular player in Belgium at that time, 2018, was Rajan Angolan. He's a maverick. He's a bit of a Paul Gascoigne type. There was demonstrations outside the training ground, and media was a frenzy for 2 weeks leading into the tournament. But you have to make big decisions in order to get the balance right of your team and your squad. And in the end, it's only justified by the results that you get. And we had the best tournament in Belgium's history. We failed in a semi-final against France that I think they probably won the game based on the fact that they'd been beat in the Euros final. 2016 and learnt their lessons, and they didn't allow any mistakes in that semi-final. I think Belgium will be better in the next tournament for that game, because I think Belgium will learn their lessons. So again, we're going right back to the start of this podcast. Experience is everything. If you manage to buy yourself enough time, you'll get better.
Totally agree.
I think that's a unbelievable way to kind of finish off. It's just superb.
It's just been fascinating. We haven't had this kind of insight. Playing and having playing only is such a sometimes such a selfish way to look at football. You know what I mean? That you see it in your own little bubble, in your own little teams, and you don't see the bigger picture. And I think when you speak to a coach and a manager and someone who's been there, especially with the experiences of club managing, Premier League, international, World Cups, it's just phenomenal, and it's just something that we've never had the opportunity to speak to anybody until now, which is obviously great. But no, it's been fab. I've really enjoyed it. I could listen all night to this.
Well, you said it would be relaxed, lad, so I've enjoyed it as well. But me, I tell the truth, so.
I know you do, which is great, because we come across people and on shows and things, and it's sometimes difficult, isn't it, when you get asked a question, or you know what I mean, or you're holding things back, because sometimes honesty is the best policy when you come out of a game, and I do get sometimes it's difficult when you're still when you're still in the game, about talking about current clubs or ex clubs, because you're still playing, you're still current. But I think sometimes you can be as honest as you want, because I think people sometimes want to hear that honesty about their club, about other clubs, about the way that football is and football was, because Graeme, football has certainly evolved since we played. You know what I mean, to the day it is now. We spoke about different generations and lifestyle choices and lifestyle decisions, and things which, you know what I mean. Listen, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I think health-wise and personal-wise, for me now, I'm probably fitter now than I ever was when I was a professional footballer. And if I had the insight now of what I needed to do now, back then, I could have been even better. Well, I would have been even better, because I would have had the fitness and the lifestyle and things. But like now as well, though, it's going to have a bigger impact on lifestyle, kids, health when I'm older, because I watch what I eat, I watch what I drink. You know what I mean? You try and get as much sleep doesn't happen, but you try and get as much sleep as you can. But it is what it is, isn't it? I just hope that young players continue to listen, like you say. You know what I mean? There's a percentage who don't, and I just hope that they don't regret, because, you know what I mean, I've known lads who didn't, once they got released by Middlesbrough, for example, at 16 or 18, that they didn't go and move away to try and resurrect their career, or, you know what I mean, and you look back now, and sometimes it can eat you inside, sometimes regrets about football and things.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Andy. It's again, it's about education. Our era, we didn't get that, and now you do. So there's no excuses.
No, I totally agree.
Okay, guys. Big thank you to Martin and Black Diamond Sports, of course, and Bespoke Financial for sponsoring the show. You could check out
Sorry, Martin the Boot Boy. Let's get that right.
Martin the Boot Boy. Sorry, I apologise.
He's a good lad, man.
But
he's an amazing lad. He's amazing. He knows I love him.
We'll be back Friday, 7 p.m. for the Championship Show, so come and join us. There may be some ranting from me about Cardiff and some things that have gone on in the media the last couple of days, but we're not getting into that now. And I've got a cricket show dropping tomorrow with West Indian legend Courtney Walsh, as well as many other shows coming this week. It's a busy week, and I'm also cooking up something special, which I can't talk about just yet. But it's coming, and it's going to be good. Thank you very much, Graeme, for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
It's been amazing, mate. Graeme,
pleasure.
Thanks for your time, and Graeme, good luck for the rest of the season.
Good lad, Andy. Thank you as well. I've enjoed it.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch Liverpool Arsenal, lads, now.
Enjoy second half. It's 2. Is it? Am I right? It's 2-1 to Liverpool.
2-1, yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiled mine.
Perfectly poised. Boys, take care. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers, Graeme.
Everyone who's
See you
tuned in.
soon, lads.
See
you,
soon.
mate.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Graeme.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so we wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.